You're listening to Ecosysteming, the podcast redefining economic development through the lens of equitable entrepreneurship. Join NC Idea's Tom Rue as he engages with entrepreneurs and experts who are challenging the status quo and driving lasting change.
Hello, listeners of the Ecosysteming podcast. I am so pleased to be joined today by Leah Wyrick, founder and CEO of Three Strands Recovery Wear. Leah, thank you so much for joining us today for this podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
You know, as is the case with these interviews, as we're doing them, I have the good fortune of knowing a bit about the subjects we're talking to. But for the sake of the listeners who may not have heard of you until now, can you please just give a quick, biographical background and kind of what you're doing with Three Strands?
Absolutely. So my name is Leah Wyrick. I created Three Strands Recovery Wear shortly after my own mother's diagnosis with breast cancer, shortly in 2016. And I was a freshman at Wake Forest University. So I actually created this product while I was a freshman there, developed it through my 4 years at school, and built this company from the ground up, being a full-time college student and a full-time business owner. We create post-operative recovery bras for breast cancer and breast cosmetic surgery patients, and really have created a product built on patient feedback. And we have seen a lot of success when you build a product that is built by the patients themselves and built by the customer. They always come. So we're really excited about where we are and how we've gotten here, and NC Idea and has been a big part of that along the way.
Well, thanks for that. So I'm going to ask you a question just because, unfortunately, cancer touches the lives of so many people, and our family's not immune either. Were you surprised as your mother, was struggling through that process at kind of the lack of options in post-operative garments?
Absolutely. I mean, at the time I was 16 years old. So I was kind of in this phase where I started to, remember and see a lot of things that I've started to think there's got to be something better. I've always been an entrepreneur at heart. I've always had some little self help stands or businesses that my parents helped me start when I was younger. So when I saw the issues that my mom went through after her diagnosis with breast cancer and she had a mastectomy, and seeing what she came home in, that post operative bra, more importantly, seeing that she had nowhere to put her drain bulbs, which are kind of like a caveat to most breast surgeries that are especially for breast cancer. She had nowhere to put those drains. So she had a friend sew her a pocket and she safety pinned it to her bra. And that was almost 10 years ago now. And that is still the norm today. And when my mom was getting in bed one night, she accidentally put her knee down on that tubing and completely ripped it from her skin.
Mm.
And just hearing that and seeing that and just remembering that that happened, I just remember thinking, she's not the only person that's going through this. There's got to be millions of other people that are having a similar issue, and there's got to be something better. And I remember looking around, trying to find anything that I could, and there was nothing available. And that today we still see that issue of people having to hack and modify their post-op bras when they should really be able to focus on getting back to normal, getting back to their families, getting back to their kids, their jobs, not having to hack and modify their own bras when they should be focused on healing.
Yeah, it's stunning. Frankly, it's stunning considering how many millions of women have gone through this, that there wasn't a better solution. However, and the reason we're here to celebrate your achievements, there are these people we call entrepreneurs,
Mm-hmm.
and they see the world a little differently, right? Think of the thousands of caregivers that saw the same problem you did. And I'd be willing even to bet that there were probably very successful business people,
Right.
in that cadre. And they just kind of threw up their hands in desperation, like, yeah, that's just the way it is. It took you and your 16-year-old self, to come through and go, there's got to be a better way, and then also born from your loving, nurturing tendency for your mom.
Right.
And that's, it's just, again, a very big kudos to you for having that. You had mentioned in your brief biography that, you always were kind of entrepreneurial as a kid.
Right.
How did that manifest?
So I've always been a very, very creative person. I love anything where I can spend hours doing crafts or making things. And, I think I got a lot of that from my dad. He is very hands on. We always were doing something when I was younger. And one thing that we bonded over when I was about 7 years old, I don't know if you remember like those paracord survival bracelets that
Hmm.
everybody used to wear. And they were at school, everybody had one, and this is one of the very first like big entrepreneur moments for me. Was my dad is a really big bow hunter, and he thought about this idea of, you've been making these paracord bracelets and selling them at school, why don't we actually turn those into a bow strap so that we can sell them to an archery shop. So I ended up creating some for him, just some little prototypes, and we went to a local archery shop, and ended up selling about 100 of them for $1,000. So I made like $1,000. I'm sure my dad probably spent more on buying the actual paracord, but it was
Still,
just instilling that idea of entrepreneurship and being able to create something and receive money for that creation of yours. And I think seeing that firsthand, being able to live on a golf course and do some of these self-help stands and make some money and see the opportunity of profit, and what I'm spending on my goods and trying to make some money from that. I just got that entrepreneurial itch really, really early on. But I swear, I really don't think that things would have happened the way that they did with my company unless it were for Wake Forest, because they really saw this opportunity for me when I came in to pitch this idea. They saw something in me that I really didn't see in myself. I didn't know if this product had any viability, but I had professors that believed in me and encouraged me. And I think they are truly the reason I believe I'm here today.
that's fantastic, and a nice shout out to your alma mater. That's obviously a big part of why we invest as much as we do in the
Yeah,
ecosystem, is because you never know where we can engage tomorrow's founders today.
right.
And of course, our university, we're so rich with universities in the state of North Carolina, that it's great. So is there university IP associated with Three Strands?
So actually, Wake Forest did help me kind of get our corporation set up, our legal entity set up when we first started in 2018, 2019. So beyond that, I was able to also use some of their patent resources and just get an idea for what that looked like. And then we started to work with a lot of the more local IP attorneys here in the area. Like right now, I'm working specifically with Kilpatrick Townsend, who really does a great job of supporting so many entrepreneurs in the IP space. And we were just granted our first official patent about 2 weeks ago. So that was about a 6 year process. So that was a big win for us. That was really exciting.
Oh, that's huge. I mean, to people that aren't familiar with the process, it's quite a journey,
Right.
and
That's a lot of money too.
a lot of money. I think 6 years is probably on the average time length. I mean, I've heard horror stories that have gone past a decade. I've heard some lucky ones that can get it done in about two. It all comes down to prior art and what's existing in the marketplace. But clearly, if they issued a patent for you, you have enough uniqueness in the market, and specifically for this purpose, that's got to give you a breadth of confidence. If you're going to be facing any type of competitive challenges in the future.
Well, we had such a good time the first time getting this patent that we filed two more. So now we're in the process of getting two additional patents. And hopefully by 2026, I will be the owner of three patents on the resilience bra. So looking
Well,
forward to that.
congratulations. That's tremendous. I happen to know, and for listeners, when we record these, we actually use video so that it's just a more pleasant experience. So I can see by your beautiful skyline behind you that you're in the Winston Starts building. I'm very familiar with that place. As a matter of fact, you have several peer organizations that have likewise been funded by NC IDEA in that same building. This is my not so clever segue to get you to opine about what does a strong ecosystem mean to you as a founder. And I don't want to ask the obvious, as and qualified as a female founder, because I think the vast majority of founders issues are unisex, so to speak. But what would you say about how the ecosystem has served you on this journey?
I think I could probably sit here for a whole day and talk to you about the resources and the entrepreneurial ecosystem here in Winston-Salem and in North Carolina. And I can't tell you how grateful I am for all of the opportunities that have been available to me here. There are not a lot of cities, there are not a lot of states that support entrepreneurs the way that North Carolina and the way that Winston-Salem does. And I was really lucky to get in with Winston Starts very early on. I was a junior in college at the time when I really figured out that this is the company that I wanted to build, this is what I wanted to do as my career. I looked for opportunities in the city that would help me do that. People that could help me get connected and really make this product and company come to life. And being involved with Wake Forest, I then was able to get connected with Winston Starts. That allowed me to get surrounded by many like-minded entrepreneurs as well as 80 plus mentors. I met my favorite mentor and person that's been with me for the last 5 years, who helped us get connected to the right manufacturing team. And then on top of that, I was able to look for opportunities for capital to help me build this business and do it 100% bootstrapped. And, I can't tell you that there's probably a lot of places that would allow a founder over the last 6 years like me to build a company 100% bootstrapped because of the grants, the pitch competitions that are available in our area. And because of that, getting connected with Winston Starts allowed me to get connected with NC Idea to then pitch for that micro grant when I was a senior in college and win $10,000 to really kickstart our business. And then to have pitched for $50,000, which was my goal. My goal for like one of my biggest goals was to always win an NC Idea seed grant because that is like creme de la creme of every entrepreneur in North Carolina wanting to be able to win that and to have that recognition. And so I was beyond grateful to have that support. And because of the grants, the pitch competitions, NC Idea's valuable gift to us, we were able to do this 100% bootstrap and to fulfill two full POs of our products, getting 10,000 bras in bootstrapped, and it's all paid off. And it just 100% blows my mind how important that was for us to do, how important it was for me to do, to build a company and to see the viability of it and to do it owning 100% of the business and proving that this company is going to work before we wanted to take on additional investment from that. And I just don't think there's any other place that could have done that other than North Carolina.
Well, I'm going to put false humility aside for a second and agree with you. In this sense with this qualifier. I just returned. I was in Washington D.C. last week at an event hosted by NASDAQ where we were being recognized for some of our ecosystem building efforts. And then having spent so much time in this space, I'm coming up on 9 years here, and then 7 years I spent at the Kauffman Foundation. I don't know of another organization in the country that deploys as much non-dilutive capital, which is, for those who are not familiar with this space, that's a big term for saying free money. So short of, Aunt Lindsay and Uncle Jack writing you a check with no expectation of ever getting paid back, it's good money. But the other part that we hear, and I'm not trying to fish this compliment out of you, but what we've heard from other founders that we have funded is beyond the money, it's the recognition, because you prevailed in a very competitive field. We give away free money, which means it's a very competitive process. And I can't remember exactly which cohorts you won in, but we average between 150 to 200 applicants per. So in your seed cohort that you were part of, you were one of the top 6 out of a field of 150 to 200. And I do remember, because I do remember your final pitch. I remember everything about your application. We're not supposed to say how they ranked, but you were ranked top. You were number 1 of those that presented during that cohort. So you earned that. This was not a gift. This was not just something you were lucky to stumble across. I mean, you're fortunate that you were working in a great environment at Winston Starts, and they are a great trusted ecosystem partner of ours. And they said, "Hey, Leah, you could really benefit from this. Why don't you go chase this?" And I'm sure they helped you with the application. Plus, there are alumni there, other
Yep.
companies that went through.
I mean, it was a process, but I mean, gosh, it just was so rewarding because whenever I have a chance to speak with new applicants for NC Ideas Seed or Micro, being able to tell them about my experience, I told them, I said, this was my job for 4 months. All sales had kind of stopped for me. I was focused on this grant because you have to give it your all. You have to invest everything because it's a big deal. It is a lot of money and it is a gift and you have to earn it. And to be able to be surrounded by Winston Starts and other founders who, they'll tell you I had them in a room for about 3 days straight, going over my pitch left and right, taking as much criticism and feedback as I could to make this pitch the very, very best that it could be. I spent that time making this pitch the best. And that's how you win this type of grant. It's by investing the time, investing the resources, taking criticism, taking feedback, and just really working as hard as you absolutely can. And that's exactly what we did for this. And I can tell you, I went from putting in that first initial application, the previous grant cycle, and not even making it through the first round, to fully dedicating myself the second time around to this application, to this pitch, to getting first place out of 150
Wait a minute.
people.
Wait a minute. I got to interrupt you for a second. Are you suggesting that you applied once and you didn't get it?
Exactly.
You mean you didn't win it just easily on the first pitch? And
Exactly.
I'm being a bit of a weirdo about this because, we, believe it or not, and you're in that exception group. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is hard for you to believe, but, I do a lot of public functions, as you know, and I'll run into applicants, right? And when it's somebody that we have funded, it's a very pleasant conversation. And when it's somebody we haven't, it spans. Like, we have some people that are super appreciative because of the feedback they get. One of those chance encounters that will stick with me for some time was a gentleman saying, "Yeah, I applied to you guys once. Yeah, I'm done with you." And I was like, "Oh, so you think it's just a one and done?" And like, you don't like, no, you guys weren't smart enough to see the opportunity. I was like, "Oh, okay." So like, how much progress has that been since it was a year ago? And he's like, "Well,
Right.
we're still in the beta, we're still trying to get our MVP out into the market." I was like, "Okay, buddy." And then my final parting comment was, so what did you, at least, was there any value to the feedback you got from the reviewers? And hand to God, Leah, you know what his response was?
What?
What feedback? And
Oh,
I
we didn't
said,
even look.
he didn't even look. I said, in the
Oh,
reviewer portal, there was detailed feedback, like, that's the whole point of this. And he said, and to his credit, I guess, he had the lucidity to say, "Well, when I saw I didn't get the grant, I didn't bother looking."
mm.
And I was like, wow.
That's what really separates the people who want it versus who don't. I mean, even after I had found out that we were a recipient of the funds, I still went back and I looked at those comments because I said that is so important for my next pitch, for that next investor pitch, or for the next hospital that we talk to. We need to know where we can improve. I mean, we always have ways that we can improve, and I think that was instilled in me really, really young by my family, was never settle. Always know that you can advance, you can always be better. And I say the same thing about our product. I got asked last week, is this fifth and MVP version that you have, is this the last one, is this good to go, you're not going to make any changes? Absolutely not. I said, we have patients, we have hospitals, we have healthcare workers that work with us every single day and tell us improvements that we can make. And the difference between us and the competitors is that we'll actually do it. We'll make those changes.
It's a
So
no-brainer. As a matter of fact, I don't think I've ever shared this with you. Speaking of the evolution of the, like, styles and designs of it, one of the things I remember from your presentation and the need to continue to evolve, I'm like, there are women who are unfortunately amputees. And, if you have a limb extremity, shoulder down, that's going to change the physiology, you know, maybe not in a significant way, but it's still going to change the physiology of, strapping. So, like, of course you're at some point going to have to modify, right? I mean, like, that's the whole crux of that.
absolutely.
You've mentioned, you've made multiple references now to your childhood, and maybe it's the proud father in me because, my three kids have been entrepreneurial their whole lives as well. Um, I think one of the cutest, you had your $1,000 bow strap
Yep.
story. For me, or for us, I think it was my youngest. So again, all three of the kids had entrepreneurial projects growing up. The youngest, though, I think she was 9. She could make these scarves from it was called finger knitting. It was kind of like knitting, but there was a pattern and you could do these scarves. And she got into a holiday craft bazaar, fair
Absolutely same.
table, and she sold out. And I mean, to the resentment of some like these old women, right?
Yep.
She would come in and clear out, and then people started giving her orders. And so, like by 10, she was already making like $1,500 a year, doing these things. And it's funny now, fast forward, she just turned 26. I think one of the side benefits of that is you understand an appreciation for a buck that you've earned, because unlike her peers, she hates spending money.
I do too. You can ask my family, you can ask my fiance. I hate it. I try to save. I'm very frugal wherever I can be, but I'm also an entrepreneur running a business and everything's expensive. So I try to be very aware of what that dollar is going towards, what the value of that is, and what we're going to get in return for that dollar spent. It is so important. I do that with my own finances too. But I love that your daughter is so entrepreneurial and she did something so similar to me. And I think it is so, so important to get young women or just young children in general used to creating something you know, from their own mind, from their own creation and earning that dollar, understanding what that feels like. And one way that what I've done with Three Strands is I always like to bring on interns. A lot of them are in high school, females in high school are in college, and it's so important for me to bring these people on and for them to see how entrepreneurs wear different hats. You can be doing accounting to sales to ops to manufacturing, whatever it may be, you're changing hats every 20 minutes, every hour, you never know. So I've had to learn a lot of different skill sets and learn really early on. I figured out what I like and what I don't like. And I think that is so important for especially those that are in college to figure out, come on to a startup, hang out with me for a semester and see what I do. I'll put you in every single thing that I do, whether it's accounting, product development, whatever it is. Figure out what you like and what you don't like early on so it can help guide what you want to do with your future. And I love giving back in that way, not only to my community, but to other potential founders out there who just kind of need that little umph to get there. So it's such a big part of who we are at Three Strands to do that.
Yeah, I think one of the ways that you stand out from your peers is, what you're expressing. You're not using these words, so I'm not putting these in your mouth, but the way we reference it is the entrepreneurial mindset. And, we espouse that as a life skill, not a business skill. People, that word entrepreneurs, it's a hard word. Like, so many people will, you ask them what an entrepreneur is, some will say, the Zuckerbergs of the world. Others will say, the husband and wife that own the gas station at the corner. And it's all variations in between, but it's a way of thinking where, going back to your own origin story, again, how many people, thousands, if not millions of people, saw the same problem you saw, but you saw it as an opportunity. You saw it as a way to have an intervention to better someone's life, in this case, your mother. But then think about how many other women's lives you're making better through this product, this manifestation of your entrepreneurial mindset, and the impact that's going to have on society. It can't be understated, frankly.
Exactly. And I think that's what keeps me going every day is it would have been really easy to have packed this up a couple years ago and to gone into corporate and to do, the business route of things that a lot of people tend to do. For me, obviously it was very personal, but I think what encouraged me more so is when I set out to do this, I knew how many women we could help. I knew how we could help change the quality of life post surgery. I knew that we could I didn't know. I found out from a patient a couple weeks ago that we helped reduce her anxiety and depression just from wearing this bra after her surgery. I never knew that that was possible. And when I think about quitting or giving up, I always think, well, if I don't do this, who will? And if I don't keep going, how many people are going to have to suffer because of it? And so while failure is okay, and I'm okay with failing because I'll get right back up and try again, failure of this business and of this product was not an option for me. So that's why we're still here and we're still going.
And it won't be. I've been around enough. a skunk smells their own kind, as they say, and I can smell you through the screen. Like this, that's a bad metaphor. I'm going to have to not use that again, but I hope you take my point,
I
right?
get
Like
it.
you are driven, and that was obvious, back to your pitch and when you won the grant to what you're doing now. And frankly, and this is a nice segue to the milestones that the business is enjoying. You shared something recently on LinkedIn that a milestone with a pretty significant healthcare system up from my old neck of the woods. Believe it or not, I'm not a son of the South. I come from Northeast Ohio, a little city called Cleveland, and they have a little clinic up there called the Cleveland Clinic. You want to share that news?
Absolutely. That was a huge opportunity that has come to us, something that we're really grateful for. Cleveland Clinic is ranked number 6 in the country for cancer centers, primarily for breast cancer. And that whole conversation, it didn't start by a warm connection. It didn't start by me randomly sending a sample. It started with me sending a LinkedIn invitation and just saying, "This is who I am. This is what I do. Will you give us an opportunity?" Yes, our story is a great segue for people to connect with us and to know who we are and why we built the product. But at some point, especially in the hospital systems, the product has to stand by itself. It's got to prove that it's going to be beneficial. It has to prove that this is something that's better than what they're currently using. And part of Cleveland Clinic definitely saw that about us. And to say, we're still working, working with them to get the bra in the system and everything like that. But to have that credibility, especially from some of the top surgeons from across the country, I mean, it is, especially within just 6 to 9 months of launching this product and me being the only salesperson right now, it just has given me the boost that I need. Everything can really get overwhelming at times when you're a solo entrepreneur and you're doing a lot on your own. But it's those moments, like with Cleveland Clinic or with some of these other major cancer centers that we're working with in the country, that just gives me the motivation of this is working, this is impacting patients' quality of life, and other people are seeing it other than me. Top cancer centers are seeing that. There is so much potential to help so many people, and it gives me so much encouragement when we see more physicians wanting to use our product because it just shows me how much they truly care about them. They want the very, very best for their patients, and that's what they're getting with the Resilience Bra.
Oh, that was so eloquently said. Two quick points for your reference. As far as being the only sales and the lead salesperson, I don't care if you get to 100 employees. That's not going to change. So this is me
Right.
putting my mentoring hat on to tell you that as the founder, no one will ever be a better salesperson than you, and you will never lose that part of the job description. And that's a lesson I had to learn. I didn't figure that out until about my third startup. So just manage your expectations accordingly. And then I don't want you to reveal anything confidential or proprietary, but back to how you made the connection via LinkedIn. Like, was there a job function, like a level that you were targeting, or was it an individual, or did you do social mapping and say, here's the chain of command we want? Like, I want there to be some nutritional value to especially founders that might be listening to this. Can you share a little bit of your process on that?
Yeah, I was actually just at Center for Creative Economy yesterday and speaking with some of their founders who are doing that Velocity program. And I had someone who's kind of in a similar space, kind of a similar target audience that we're trying to get to. And she had asked me something similar. Who am I going after? I think it's most important. You have to be the expert in your industry. You have to know if you're, especially in a hospital system, you have to know that exact person that you're going to go after that can make the right introduction to that next person, because there's so many people in the supply chain. There's so many people that work at these places. There's no way for you to know exactly who to speak with. For me, it was definitely targeting down breast nurse navigators is a big thing for us. You need to know who's working in the hospital, who is that specific point of reference that most patients are going through. It can be said for anybody in any industry, really, but in the healthcare industry, it's really interesting. Um, and then also targeting what department is their product supposed to be in. So we had to look for surgical oncology, reconstructive surgery, and plastic surgery. So we are targeting breast nurse navigators, and all of these surgeons within these departments, reaching out, trying to find if their contact information was available. And if it's not available, trying to maneuver and figure out an email template of what their organization would be so you can email them or get to them, and using LinkedIn as a resource. So, definitely, a lot of these people are on LinkedIn. A lot of times you can see if you have mutual connections, so you can tap into someone who might can make that warm introduction. And I know I've probably done that to you a time or two, Tom, to try to make those warm introductions, because there is really nothing better than having someone make that introduction for you before you have to go cold email, cold call. But I've had to do both, and both of them have worked really well for me if you're able to capture them in that first 30 seconds of talking to them. That's the most important point of sales, right? You have to be able to capture them and get that hook really early on, and if you do, they're either going to be willing to help you or get you connected to the right person that can help you. So that's what's worked for me.
That's really insightful, and I appreciate you sharing that. I would also guess that whether you did this explicitly or implicitly, you started where you started, namely with your mother's experience, and you could reverse engineer who does she as a patient interact with. When was there, the navigator involved? When was the surgeon involved? And then you could use that frame of reference and then map that onto this platform. It happens to be LinkedIn. Speaking of LinkedIn, we've tried to figure out a clever way to wrap these, podcasts up, and so we think we have one, and so here it is for you. As you would expect, we are connected on LinkedIn, and yes, you have on maybe an occasion or two asked for a connection, and we're happy to do that. Right, that's a big part of what NC Idea does, is that we loan our Rolodex, metaphorically speaking, to the benefit of those in our family, which is our affectionate way of referring to you and other partner organizations. So, with that being said, how many mutual connections would you guess you and I have on LinkedIn?
I think I looked at this the other day.
Did you?
I think I did, because I was seeing if you knew someone that you could get me connected with. Um, I thought it was like 70 something. I thought it was a pretty big number.
Oh man, we are. I'm going to have to tell Christian we're going to have to come up with some kind of prize. Whoever guesses close enough. We have 79 mutual connections.
Yeah.
And so I always then, I don't know about you, but I'm weird this way, like, because, let's be honest, right? Like, I've got like over, I don't know how many you have, I got over 7,000 connections. And I could say that I probably know 10% of them.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So I always look for like, who are those in that 10 percentile that we share? And two that just jump out are, Abby of Smart Girls HQ and Desmond of Battery Exchange, right?
I was just with them. I was just
Two
with them
other
the other
founding
day.
companies, right?
Yep.
Like, but out in Charlotte. So like they're a couple of our rising stars in our Charlotte market and ecosystem. So I was curious, like, you've been masterful. You're in the triad, as we refer to it. We know through your work with us, you've got connections to the triangle, and then I'm looking how connected you are to the other members in the family there in Charlotte. So, like, is that your ecosystem? Do you see it that broad, or was it just weird coincidence that the first couple mutuals I'm seeing are out of the Charlotte market? Like, do you spend a lot of time in the Charlotte ecosystem, or?
So after I pitched for NC Idea and I went to the ecosystem summit that you guys have, where I got to go on stage, I met a very special man named Manuel Bynum,
I know
who
Manuel well.
who works with Atrium Health, and he is a wonderful, wonderful person. And I think I realized really early on, after speaking with him, I am really ingrained in the Triad area. Winston is home for me. I have been here through college. I have been here through Winston Starts, and I'm still here. It will be home. Started to get very ingrained within the Triangle region with NC Idea, and made a lot of trips up there last year, and still do, because we have a lot of hospitals and mastectomy boutiques up there. But what I started to realize is that there are so many opportunities in Charlotte with healthcare systems, with the entrepreneurial ecosystem, that I haven't tapped into. And I only live about 45 minutes from there. So after a meeting with Manuel, I went and spoke with Desmond, and I said, how do I start to get integrated within the Charlotte ecosystem and really start to make this a new place of resources for me? And I was speaking again with CCE yesterday, and I told them, staying in Winston, there's nothing wrong with that. Staying in Winston, you will meet some really, really great people, but don't limit yourself to just one part of North Carolina. There are so many mentors out there that are willing to help you, get you connected to people, make those warm introductions that I need, which is why I started to branch into the Charlotte area as well. So I work really closely with Atrium Health's Center for Entrepreneurship and Diversity program that they just launched. So I was just with Abby and Desmond about 2 weeks ago at that launch, and have learned a lot from them because we're kind of all in a similar boat, kind of working with some healthcare systems. So they've been great mentors to me. But the most important thing was just recognizing that there are so many other mentors and opportunities out there. You just have to make the leap to do it. And it was a no brainer for me to move into the Charlotte area as well.
Well, thank you for that. And also thank you for making a commercial, not that you intended to or realized, for the summit. Because what I also took away from your comments was the fact that we hold this annual statewide entrepreneurship ecosystem summit. You made that connection to Atrium, which is serving you well. And that's a big reason why we still do it. And as a matter of fact, we are feverishly heads down. We're getting close to getting this launched. It'll be another great one. Matter of fact, ticket sales are well ahead of all prior years' paces. So
That's awesome.
I don't know what's in the air or water, but
It's a great program, and it's very helpful to so many, no matter where you're at and what stage you're in, or if you're an entrepreneur or not. It's very beneficial for so many people.
well, it's you are the affirmation of why I do what I do. So, the listeners can't see me grinning from ear to ear, but I'm just so happy because you keep our batteries charged. We want to find the next, 100, 500 Leahs out there, with other great ideas that are serving humanity. So thank you for the work that you do. It's been a privilege to support you on this journey. When you're wildly successful, just promise me you'll find a moment to come back and, spend a little time with us little people that helped you along the way.
Absolutely. I can't thank you guys enough. I can't thank you enough for your support, your continued support. You and Amy and Lee have been a huge part of my journey. And, I will never forget that. I will always be here to support NC Idea.
That's very sweet of you to say. Thank you so much. And
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on the podcast today.
Thank you.
Stay connected with NC Idea on LinkedIn, Facebook, and X. And subscribe to our newsletter for all the latest. Catch new episodes of Ecosysteming every other Tuesday. Thanks for tuning in and being a part of this thing of ours.